The prince did as Shaking Head bade him. When he saw the comb, the king said, "Now you have my daughter 2/3 won." But the princess was so vexed that any man should know of her dealings with the giant. The third night, when he was going to bed, the princess said to the king's son, "If you will not have at my father's castle tomorrow morning the head I will kiss tonight, you'll die tomorrow, and your own head will be put on the last spike in my father's garden." Later in the night she came to the bedside of the king's son with a draught, which he drank, and before she was back in her chamber he slept. Then she made such music all over the castle that not a soul was awake when the music had ceased. That morning she hurried away with her maid to the eastern world, but Shaking Head followed her in the cloak of darkness. This time he carried with him the two-handed sword that never failed a blow. When she came to the rock in the eastern world and entered the house of the giant, the princess said, "You let my 2 gifts go with the son of the king of Heron, and he'll have me one tomorrow if you have your head at my father's castle in the morning." "Never fear," said the giant. "There is nothing in the world to take the head off me but the double-handed sword of darkness that never fails a blow, and the sword that belongs to my brother in the western world." The princess gave the giant a kiss at parting, and as she hurried away with her maid, the giant turned to look at her. His head was covered with an iron cap, but as he looked, he laid bare a thin strip of his neck. Shaking Head was there near him, and said in his mind, "Your brother's sword was never been so close to your neck before," and with one blow he swept the head off him. Then began the greatest struggle that Shaking Head ever had, to keep the head from the body of the giant. The head fought to put itself on again, and never stopped till the body was dead. Then it fell to the ground. Shaking Head ceased, but could not stir the head, could not move it from its place. Then he searched all around and found a pin of slumber near the ear. When he took the pin away, he had no trouble in carrying the head, and he made no delay but came to the castle at daybreak and threw the head to a herd of pigs that belonged to the king. Then he went to the king's son and said, "What happened to you last night?" "The princess came to me and said that if I wouldn't bring her to the father's castle this morning, the head she was to kiss last night, my own head would be on the last spike today." "Come out with me now to the pigs," said Shaking Head. The 2 went out, and Shaking Head said, "Go in among pigs, and take the head with you to the king, and a strange head it is to be put before a king." So the prince went on his steed to the summer house, and gave the head to the king and his daughter, turning to the princess and said, "This is the head you kissed last night, and it's not a nice-looking head either." "You have my daughter won now entirely," said the king, "and she is yours. And do take that head to the great dark hole that is out there on the side of my castle grounds, and throw it down." The prince mounted his steed, and rode off with the head till he came to the hole going deep into the earth. When he let down the head, it went into the bottom with such a roaring and such a noise that every mare and cow and every beast in the whole kingdom cast its young. Such was the terror that caused by the noise of the head in going to the bottom of the hole. When the head was put away, the prince went back to the castle, and married the daughter of King Behind the Gold. The wedding lasted 9 days and nights, and the last night was better than the first. When the wedding was over, Shaking Head went to the king and said, "You have provided no fortune for your daughter, and it is but right you should remember her." "I have plenty of gold and silver to give her," said the king. "It isn't gold and silver that your son-in-law wants, but men to stand against his enemies when they come on him." "I have more treasures than men," said the King Behind the Gold, "but I will not see my daughter conquered for want of an army." They were satisfied with the king's word, and next day took the road to Erin and kept on their way till they came to the opposite graveyard. Then Shaking Head said to the prince, "You are no good. You have never told me a story since the first day I saw you." "I have but one story to tell you, except what happened since we met." "Well, tell me what happened before we met." "I was passing this place before I saw you," said the king's son, "and 4 men were fighting over a coffin. I spoke to them, and 2 of them said they were burying the body of their brother, which was in the coffin, and the other said that the dead man owed them £5, and now they would not let the coffin into the ground until they got the money. I paid £5, and the body was buried." "It was my body that was in the coffin," said Shaking Head, "and I came back into this world to do you a good turn, and now I'm going, and you'll never see me again unless trouble is on you." Shaking Head disappeared, and the king's son went home. He was not with his father long until the other 3 king's sons had heard he had come back to Erin with the daughter of King Behind the Gold. They sent word saying, "We'll take the head off you now, and put an end to your father and yourself." The king's son went out to walk alone, and as he was lamenting the fate he had brought on his father, who should come along to meet him but Shaking Head. "What trouble is on you now?" asked he. "Oh, 3 king's sons are coming with their fleets and armies to destroy my father and myself, and what can we do with our 1 fleet and 1 army?" "Well," said Shaking Head, "I'll settle that for you without delay." Then he sent a message straight to the king behind the gold, who gave a fleet and an army, and they came to Erin so quickly that they were at the castle before the forces of the 3 king's sons. And when the 3 came, the battle began on sea and land and at both sides of the castle. The 3 fleets of the 3 king's sons were sunk, their armies destroyed, and the 3 heads taken off themselves. When the battle was over and the country safe, the king resigned the castle and power to his son, and the prince in a province became a king over all the land of Ireland.